Hit the button.
Got to find the button. Here's the button. Apparently the buttons aren't working tonight, Casey. So we're gonna go without the intro. I don't know what's going on. I hit the button. The button.
This is the Sluggo, slant and go.
Promise you, hit the button on time. We've already got one laughing emoji. Somebody's laughing at us, and that's the kind of day it's been. I look down my microphone, the little cutting off. Who knows where it's at? I had to take it from my work headset. You know, I thought about something today, fellas. And by the way, Casey the Beef Cregan in your top left, or my top left, he might be on your top right. Houston Burnett on my top right, might be in your top left. Appreciate you, Houston, for joining us. I know you're headed for vacation, but we got business to take care of before we get there.
Yeah.
You can rest, and you don't have to listen to morning talk. So yeah.
I can't. I'm hearing. It sounds like you're having a conversation with some biotechnical robot here, man.
Yeah, Max Headroom. Not to date myself, but that's like the old Pepsi commercial.
Yeah.
But this is how my day has gone today. Everything's messed up, and anyway, new computer. Don't know what's going on, but we're here. We're going to talk sports. How's it going, Casey?
It's good. Everything's good. That's all I can say. We're here back in Mom's basement for back in New Jersey. So you never know where I am. Yeah, literally. We got here late last night, and so here we are. But that's why I have a little bit better lighting this week.
The reunion tour. Houston, you're going on vacation tomorrow. Sounds like a good time is ready to be had.
Yeah, man, it's a great place to just go, relax, disconnect, trash talk other podcasts on Twitter, I guess. But I guess next time, guys, y'all might have to pay me to be on here because it sounds like we're struggling with relevancy here, all that kind of stuff. These $1 million mouth salary of a sandwich artist, other podcasts that really want to get on to, that's what we're dealing with here, man. I guess they need to go get a flat bill, gold chain, road tank,
and some Just for Men.
Really, really, really want to just grab the inner Pac Sun manager that I want to become.
That's one thing I can't go for. I'm an old dude, but I can deal with most of the young stuff. The flat bills kill me, man. They kill me. Nelson wanted to know if we were live. Yes, we did. It was very slow. I don't know. The brain computer. I don't know what. That's just my luck. I don't know what's going on. Chancey was obviously the one who laughed. And, of course, Kevron checks in. Monty Lee should have stayed for another year. We're going to talk about that, Kevron. Give us 2 minutes and 28 seconds, which we've already surpassed. Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show is here to join Casey and I tonight. Clemson baseball. Maybe we'll get to some of the big for Tigers football. But we didn't talk about that, so we thought we'd surprise him with that. Or I did. I just thought of it like 30 minutes before the show. Monty Lee is out as the Clemson head baseball coach. And Houston, I heard you talking with Morgan last night, and Casey and I just got off of a Twitter Spaces with analysis and Cromwell and quarters and other fellows in there. Initial thoughts on Monty Lee not returning for 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I said this on the video we did last night. It's like you never want to be like, oh, yay, firing. That's not something you celebrate. It's unfortunate. I think Monty is a good coach. It just is one of those situations where it didn't work out. I don't blame Radakovich for moving on from Leggett. I don't blame Radakovich for hiring Monty Lee. He was the hottest mid-major name in the game at the time. He had a fun offense. He came from a great system. He checked all the boxes, and this didn't work out. And I mean, he did a lot of good things. He did a lot of things that I think fans wanted out of a new coach. It just didn't pan out with the strategy that he was playing at this level. And it's a results-oriented game, so you gotta just move on. I think he would be a perfect fit for any mid-major, and I don't mean just like College of Charleston. I mean, if a job came up in ECU or Charlotte or something that's a little bit a step up from the lower levels, he would be fine. I just think this was one of those perfect storm kind of instances.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good coach somewhere. Just didn't work out. Not enough wins, as I said, and what a classy statement from Monty. It'd have been easy to be bitter. I mean, we still hear Jack Leggett talking about 7 years ago and wanting things on the outfield wall to recognize his time at Clemson. But Monty Lee left with a lot of class, and hearing Patrick Cromwell talk about him, Casey, was it just kind of brings it home, right? Those are real people with real feelings, and as Houston said, you don't want anybody to get fired. It's not about that. But for me, Patrick's comments cemented what I knew, the Monty I knew, like the 5 interactions I had with him on Twitter. I mean, here I am sitting in Texas talking baseball to Clemson baseball coach. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. We were talking lineups. He's like, well, where would you put Joe? And why would you put him there? And then I would say something and he'd come back at me and say, no, I got him second because of this. I mean, it wasn't a one-way conversation. It was just good time. So Casey, your initial thoughts on Monty Lee not returning for 2023?
Yeah, sometimes when coaches leave, I believe that, I mean, heck, just in my little tenure, there's a immediate response to want to badmouth somebody. Bowden wasn't good enough, couldn't win the big game. I don't know, but go basketball. Barnes left us. He left us in the middle of the night, and Oliver Purnell couldn't do this or that, the other. It doesn't feel like there is much of that right now. It just felt like the standard is the standard, and the standard wasn't lived up to. So it had to be a change made. Like I said earlier, I thought he deserved one more year with some major changes on the staff. I thought maybe keep LeCroy because the recruiting stayed at a relatively high level from all the numbers that we see. Maybe a change of pitching staff because obviously the development wasn't up to snuff, especially on the mound. But it was also telling in the spaces a couple minutes ago that we had Caden Grice on there. We had John French on there. We had Nick Hoffman that jumped in there. We had Briar Hawkins. We had Blake Wright. We had all these guys. Corbett was in there for a minute. We had all these guys listening. So not saying anything because they're probably, like we heard, probably not allowed to say anything. But they're all interested into what's next, and maybe they were hoping we had something profound. We didn't. But it was fun. I know I don't, but it was fun. It was fun to be in there. It's sad because and we need a new Rally Cat coach now too because his wife was the Rally Cat coach. So
I had no idea.
Yeah, so we have multiple coaches now need to be filled.
See,
so that's really what I came on tonight to talk about is who's going to be the new Rally Cat coach.
See, Houston, see what you're missing every Wednesday night. We talk about
this is the dumb knowledge that I have.
I mean,
why do we know this?
That could be a separate. What's the company within a company? What's the term for that? I can't remember the name.
Oh
of it.
Yeah, I know.
But like the podcast within a podcast could just be me and Beef having dumb knowledge about just the most random stuff. He knows about Rally Cat coaches. I know mascots of mascots 20 years ago. That's what we do.
Those are what you call sub podcasts, right? We talk about the stuff, but
Shell podcast.
Oh, there you go. I was going to say, if I put out on Twitter, we're talking about Rallycast, we might have more than 6 viewers. So, so we'll see. But yeah, I think Casey hit on a couple of things there. The performance just wasn't there, right? And someone on the Spaces was talking about, well, the last 2 years. But really, Houston, has it been the last 2 years? I mean, this is a team that was regionals host, super regional participant, often in Omaha, and we haven't seen Omaha since 2010. It's 2022, going to be 2023. I'm not bagging on Monty. Obviously, I just went through a statement where I love the guy personally, enjoyed talking to him. He'd reach out to anybody, as we found out on Twitter. I thought I was special. Apparently, he talked to anybody who talked to him on Twitter, but it's not just the last couple of years. Yes, the losing season hurt. Yes, coming in, barely making the ACC tournament hurt. But over those 7 years of Monty Lee, they never made the super regional.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the big sign right there. I mean, you look at what happened with what led Leggett to get fired wasn't missing the tournament. What led the Leggett getting fired was, this stair step downward. Clemson had gone from being on the precipice to having their soul snatched away by Ray Tanner to inexplicably losing a home regional to UConn. I don't understand how they lost that first game with him, to not even hosting again under his time there. And it slowly got worse. It was getting to the point where they were getting shellacked by Liberty or not even getting a win at the Fullerton in his last regional. So it made sense that they had to move on from Leggett because it was becoming stagnant. Everything was becoming stagnant about the program. And it's kind of what happened with Monty Lee, just in a quicker time frame. That first year with Monty Lee, even though Clemson didn't make it out of the regional, everybody was all in because of the run through the ACC tournament. Everybody was all in. Everybody was like, Seth Beer's here. We're going. This is it. We're back, baby. And it was, 2 decent years, but kind of regressions with each. And then Seth Beer walks out the door, and it's like the entire offense and the pitching staff followed with him. That 2019 team made no sense to get shellacked like they did by South Carolina, to not look competitive in the Mississippi Regional. I really do believe, though, that 2020 season that was lost could have been the difference in what happened. Because, I mean, you don't know. You had 3 guys on that starting rotation and a deep bullpen. Like, I know we complain about the bullpen, but that bullpen was actually good. And, they were starting to come up their own hitting. They might have ended up like this team in 2022 where they just didn't perform well down the stretch. They started out well and then dipped. But it could have been when you got guys like Weatherly, Strider, and Davis as your starting 3, you can go against any team in the ACC and win. So we could be sitting here today just going, just got to give it a little bit more time. If they had had that full season, if you'd had a full season in 2020, you might have won more games in 2021. So we don't know. But it just happened the way that it did. You lost the season in 20. You went on a losing streak or a losing season in 2021 and then just didn't hit the mark in 22. And I really think that pandemic shortened season was the moving, like the sinking of the ship per se that led to this.
Wasn't Strider the Sunday starter?
Yeah.
I said that earlier on. Yeah,
Strider
I
was
thought
the starter, yeah.
Clark, Weatherly, then Strider, I thought.
I was going to say, Casey has been on that 2020 season. You talked about it on Spaces. We've talked about it several times with JP Priester on this show. Seth, I understand what you guys are saying. I understand the staff. He's starting for the Atlanta Braves now and striking out guys, throwing 98. I think I saw his fastballs averaging 98.6 or something in the major leagues. I get that. But this team that sat in front of us this year was 14-0 at one point and swept South Carolina.
Yeah.
It just seemed like there was always a malaise in the season somewhere. Somewhere where they would have 2 or 3 bad series strung together, maybe win 1 out of 2, and they should have taken 2 out of 3. And I would always say those games matter when you want to host regionals and you want to host supers. and they got to the point where they mattered if you even wanted to make the tournament. And that was where I was going. We went from a place where we thought we were going to Omaha every year to, okay, maybe not Omaha, but we get to a super. Okay, maybe not a super, but we can host a regional. Okay, maybe we won't host this year, but we'll get in the tournament. To please let us get in the tournament. So there was a definite curve here, and I didn't get the chance to say that on the spaces, but there's a definite downturn here with Clemson baseball. And I started understanding, I thought Monty was in trouble when I myself would find something else to do when the games are on. For 40 something years, I have followed Clemson baseball, never turned away from a game if possible. Obviously things happen, but free time, Clemson baseball. I hate to tell you this, but this year I started going, wife would say, let's go to lunch. I'm like, okay, let's do that. Yard needs cutting, whatever, I'm going to miss 3 innings, big deal. That told me, and of course, some comments by JP Priester. He had a similar. He travels to the games, and he was similarly getting tired of what was happening and not happy with it. So it's had a different vibe this year, and maybe it's because the expectations were set crazily high with a 14-0 start. Casey, I don't know. Give me your thoughts.
Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I think you can explain away some of the regionals that Monty had. I know, Houston, you mentioned it last night in your show. That Oklahoma State team that came in and beat the doors off Clemson you almost felt excited because that was what Monty wanted with his team. I mean, those dudes just bashed, and they had a couple arms that were just lights out. So they were just coming in swinging for the fences, and they were good at it. Then you had Vanderbilt 2 years in a row, and it was almost the same exact regional. Now, you can explain it away because Vanderbilt has had such success, and they're probably the preeminent program in the country at this point, right now in the current landscape. But yeah, I don't have anything else. After that, then that step down, it just kept occurring, and it stinks. It just stinks. That's my profound statement.
Profound it is. John Chancey has a comment below us saying the competition in the ACC has proved top to bottom. I see Houston going back and forth, but I will say this: Notre Dame is an example of a team that has improved a lot in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with hiring a coach. Like, there are certain things. I think there should be standards of teams that there's no reason that you're losing to in most sports. Pitt, you should not lose to in baseball.
I agree.
Ever. I think Boston College, which we didn't lose to, we won that series, but that should be the standard. With a team like Notre Dame, I know they have a winning tradition. They're a team that has a proud tradition in baseball, but it's not Clemson when it comes to baseball.
Agreed.
And when they're able to bash your brains in 2 years straight, they swept us in 21 too, right? They've swept us 2 straight years.
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3.
Okay, 2 out of 3. So, that's not acceptable. Like, you should be beating Notre Dame at home, and you should be continuing to take it serious. I mean, think about it. Jack Leggett's last season, before he was fired, they went to Notre Dame and swept that team in South Bend, and or maybe it was the 14 team. I just don't think that was teams like Notre Dame, Virginia Tech especially. We should not be getting beat 18-6 by Virginia Tech. Yes. I can understand if there are teams within the ACC that can come up and bite you every now and again, like Wake Forest or Duke can have a crazy year and be good, but consistently, Clemson, there's no excuse, none, that Clemson shouldn't be at least in the top 6.
I told Casey earlier, I don't know if Casey remembers, but when they lost to Pittsburgh and how they played, I thought that was a turning point in the season. They looked like they didn't care, right? Tyler Neely says, and Tyler looks like, I don't remember that name, so maybe a new viewer. We appreciate you, Tyler. Monty Lee has brought here for one reason only, to get us over the hump that Jack Layton couldn't. Monty factually got here by playing small ball like Jack did. The past few years, he's factually changed to launch angle home run coach. It was his downfall. Great guy, great family, but it was time. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I thought Monty was always
he was a home run guy. They led the nation in home runs at CFC when he came. He's always been a swing. You got to realize he subscribes to the same offense that Ray Tanner did. Ray Tanner is not a small ball guy. Ray Tanner was, let's get the beef in the lineup and let's swing for the fences. And that's what Monty Lee did. So, yeah, it's a little bit.
They ran, too, at CFC.
Yeah.
Because they ran at South Carolina, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think baseball's changed since then, right? I mean, on the major league level, it certainly has. I don't know about college or not. I know there's teams that still run. The one thing I'll say about, and we'll talk about the coaches in a minute, but Notre Dame, the way they play, and Casey and I have also talked about this, is Notre Dame just plays the right way under Link Jarrett. They don't make mistakes. They're solid fundamentally. They bunt when they need to bunt. They hit home runs. They pitch well. They do everything well, and that's why that's why he stood out to me. So let's talk about it, guys. I think Houston and I agree that it was time. I know, Casey, you're maybe a little more hesitant because you don't like to see people lose their jobs, and I get that. And I think you heard me say that on the spaces, the emotion coming out, having a connection, how little tenuous it was with Monty Lee. I hated to see him leave, but I thought it was time. So options for the new coach. Just like every other coaching search, there's going to be pie in the sky things, and there's going to be ones that people want to get the up and comer. That's the thing, right? Let me find the coach nobody's talking about, and maybe they'll hire me to be great, and I can talk about it forever, like Dabo. Let's start out with Dan McConnell at Louisville. Now, Louisville has a new athletic director. First of all, Houston, what do you think about Dan McConnell, and do you think he would entertain any offer from Clemson?
This is one that I don't know. Like, I know he played with Lamonis. He's got some ties to South Carolina. He's a good coach. And so if Clemson were to go that direction, you're not going to hear me complain about that. What he's done at Louisville is really good. But with that said, I don't know. I feel like some of the options that are being tossed out there, if they're interested, would be better than him. Nothing against him. Like I said, what he's done at Louisville is great. They're hosting this week, I think. They have a fun brand of offense. They always tend to have great two-way players like Brendan McKay. So like they do a lot of great things. But I think with what Clemson needs, I think there might be some other names on there that might be interested that could just fit perfectly within the mold of Clemson.
And Louisville always seems to have like 117 pitchers, right? They just keep bringing them out.
Yeah.
Dan McConnell, Casey.
I love it. I actually sent it to Houston way too late last night in the text after my trip to New Jersey. But I'm like, I said it on Twitter earlier, I hate that the guy's losing his job. And then also me is who can we possibly get to move on? So there's a love-hate relationship with losing a coach, because this is exciting for people, anybody with a pulse. I love Dan McDonald because I used to see McConnell. Yeah, he wears the big safari hat, and he always has because he's Irish skin. He gets sunburn. But I used to watch him down in the Big East tournament in Clearwater, Florida, and I'm like, who the heck is this guy? And one year when they first started their rise, I think it was his second year there, they just absolutely came into that tournament and just beat the brains out of everybody in that league. Now, that was when UConn was relatively good. Actually, Rutgers was pretty good that year. There were some teams that were pretty decent in that league. And I was like, this guy would be awesome. And he does everything. He's kind of like that Northeast coach where they run, they pitch, they have great defenders. They had a third baseman, Chris was his first name. I can't think of his last name. Was a first-round pick. He mashed. So I love I can't think of his name. McConnell, whatever.
Guy.
Dan, we're on first name basis. I love this option. I don't think it's going to happen, though. The only reason why his name is being linked up is because of the new AD, and there's rumors that they don't get along because of the lack of finances that are going to the program. We'll see.
Well,
it's worth a call.
And he's linked up because he went to the Citadel, right? And South Carolina and connections. And it always baffles me is like Kevin O'Sullivan coached at Clemson 78 years ago, and those are Clemson connections, right? So he's going to run back to Clemson because of he coached there a long time ago.
And the guy he was the right-hand man of got unceremoniously dumped.
Got hosed, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not host, but guy.
I mean, depending on how you look at it, he
yeah. Not in my. He didn't get hosed in my opinion.
Me neither.
Okay, we talked about this guy a little bit. I'll just say this: Link Jarrett at Notre Dame. If he came to Clemson, I would be a happy camper. Houston.
Yeah, I have a 1A and 1B, and I think he's my 1A.
Okay.
I think with the way that they've played, look, Notre Dame, they're a proud traditional like sports and everything. They try to be good in everything. But when you're a successful Northeastern baseball team and you're able to beat the brakes off of some successful ACC teams, that says something to me. Like, it's one thing to be in the Big Ten and then make some noise. That does a lot of big things. But when you're in a conference, you're way out. You're having to deal with the Northeastern problems that you have to deal with, and you're consistently kicking tail against teams like Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Clemson, and Miami, and North Carolina. That says something. And on top of that, he recruits the area. He's from he coached at UNCG, played at Florida State. The only knock would be, would he be committed to Clemson if Florida State were to come up in 4 or 5 years? That would be the only thing that would kind of be the holdup for me. But yeah, Lincoln Jarrett, man, if he comes to Clemson, I'm on the train, baby. Let's go.
Hey, well, that's the same knock against Dabo, right? 4 or 5 years, Alabama's going to come call it, right?
Yeah,
but I think Dabo's been here a little bit longer. Link Jarrett, Casey the Beef Cregan.
Love it.
Casey loves everybody. Houston.
I love it because the same idea, and Houston said it. It's the Northeast coach who plays their first 3.5 months in Florida or somewhere in the South because there's snow on their fields. Love the style of play that he has, and it's obviously proven to win in this conference. That's a slam dunk hire, and it's got to be, in my opinion, the first call you make.
Cool. Kevin O'Sullivan, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I made a funny joke, or at least I thought it was funny. He coached at Clemson 150 years ago. His mentor got canned by the Tigers. I don't see it happening. Why would he leave Florida to come to Clemson? Houston?
There might be some personal reasons that I won't go into. But I don't think so. I mean, look, you just got a new stadium. You're in a, upper echelon SEC job. You're getting paid a lot of money. If you're not going to go to South Carolina, you're not going to go to Clemson. Like, that's just how I look at it.
Fair enough. Beef?
Get out of here. No, I don't want it. and I worked in the athletic department when he was around. Nice enough guy. Recruits the crap out of Florida. I don't want it.
Okay, this next one, I'm not even going to throw to y'all. I saw this on one list and one list only. So if you want to say something, say something. If you don't, we'll pass. Chad Holbrook.
Oh, no. Okay, I thought you were going to say.
I thought it was coming too.
I thought you were going to say somebody else. I was like, oh my
God. Intrigue on the show tonight.
I don't think Chad Holbrook would be a fit. And I'll be honest, like, personality-wise, I kind of like Chad Holbrook. He's got a good, chill Southern vibe, but I just don't think it would be what Clemson needs at this moment. If you want to be honest, if like a job like Liberty came open, he's the first call I'd make if I were the Liberty AD.
Yeah, College Charleston too. Yeah, apparently they got rid of the one dude so they could hire him. Is what I read. So imagine the fan base if a failed South Carolina coach that came from the College of Charleston, where your last coach that you just fired came from. I said today on Rubbing the Rock, they would revolt. And it is a revolting thought. Casey the Beef Cregan, Chad Holbrook.
I've been called worse. Yeah, I hard pass on Holbrook. And again, sound like a broken record. I think he's a good enough guy. I think he's probably a really good coach, actually, that just he was the guy after the guy, kind of like the Saban mold again. You don't want to be that guy after the guy because that microscope is awful hard to get out of. So I'm sure he's a good coach. It's the same, feels like the same progression. I know he was the head coach at South Carolina that Monty did, and don't we want to try to, especially Graham Neff, he probably wants to kind of pave his own way, and that South Carolina to CFC to Clemson didn't work previously. Let's move away from that progression.
Okay, we're going to do 3 more real quick, and if I don't hit the guy that you guys are talking about, or if you want to talk about anybody else, I'm here for it. Eric Bakich, Michigan. I think he wants to play catch at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, so everybody thinks he's in. He's in. Good coach. Got him to a final a couple of years ago. Houston?
I would say he's my 1B. Okay. And it's not for the reasons that the Clemson, all that kind of stuff. Look, he did catch at Clemson. That's true. But I think you listen to him talk, and it's like he's got a lot of similarities to how he develops people, similar to like Dabo. It's not always like, all right, we're gonna get out there and hit this way. One of his talks was, how to study things, evidence versus experiment. I was like, that's a unique way to like take about this as a baseball coach. And once again, it's a northeastern or a northern gig. Michigan probably doesn't have as proud of a baseball program as Notre Dame. They have some good teams, but they've never been. I don't know of any teams that Michigan was good before this. And so for him, it's been a while. So, I mean, you get to within a game of winning the national freaking championship with Michigan. That says something. And then on top of that, it kind of won me a little bit this week. They were kind of floating in the abyss, not looking like they were going to the tournament. And then lo and behold, they go to Omaha and win the Big Ten tournament, and now they're in the tournament. So I like a lot of the spunk and the development that he's got. Now, once again, Link Jarrett, I would take that. But if Eric Bakich was the coach, I'd actually feel comfortable with that decision.
Cool. Casey?
Yeah, I'm going to contradict myself, right? Because I know that I said O'Sullivan, former Leggett guy, wouldn't fit, wouldn't want to come back. Bakich was the volunteer head coach in 2002 under Leggett. But I think it would be I think that would be a slam dunk hire for Clemson at this point.
All right. Slam dunk. And Casey taught me how to say this name, Houston, so bear with me if I screw it up. John Sheff at Virginia Tech. My concern here is he's had a good year at Virginia Tech, and is he parlaying that into something over his head? He's had some history, right, of being good. Rebuilt Maryland, I think, Casey's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but rebuilt Maryland, had some history. I'm not so comfortable with this guy. Houston?
I mean, yeah, I understand that. I think the way that you look at Maryland's actually done a great job of their last 3 hires. You had Bakich, you had Sheff, and now you got Rob Vaughn. They're all good coaches. The thing about Sheff went down to Founders Park and blew the doors off of Chad Holbrook down there in a regional final. He develops good pitchers, and that's one thing that you're going to get out of his teams. And apparently they can hit home runs too. I'm just kind of he's not my first choice. He's not my last choice. I would say, like, I would hope that we've at least gone to bat for 1A and 1B before we go to him first.
Boy, they hit, I think, 19 home runs in that one inning in the ACC tournament. Casey, John Sheff.
Man, I looked down the list, and we've mentioned 3 guys in the ACC already that are possibilities, and I like Sheff. I think he would be fantastic. I think that the pedigree of building a program, but he's also now would be known as somebody that bounces. So obviously for step up jobs, but would he leave Clemson for what he would deem as a step up job somewhere else? I don't know, but I don't want to be elitist. So
or relevant even.
I would love Sheff, but I just don't know if these guys would. He would probably be probably number 3 for me.
Casey, in 93 shows, we've been called a lot of things, but elitist is not one of them. If there's any, I know what it is, Casey. You've got the damn collar on tonight. That's what it is.
That's probably what it is.
You're one of those dadgum East Coast elitists. That's what you are.
Yeah.
You're one of those elitists there, Marty.
That's hilarious. I've never been called elitist in my life. I grew up in a house. I grew in a
mixing a water.
I grew up in a room with 4 brothers in the same room, but I'm an elitist. Okay. Last coach for me to talk about, then you guys can throw out your ideas. Cliff Godwin, East Carolina. I'm of the belief if you're a top 15 program, which Graham Neff believes Clemson is, you do not hire from a mid-major, using the football term mid-major. However, this guy would be the exception because what I read is East Carolina has gone to 3 super regionals, I think, in 9 years, which is amazing. And in those 9 years, Clemson has gone to 0, I believe. So they can dominate the conference, is what I heard from a close contact former D1 player is, yeah, but when you're playing at that in those conferences, you just dominate the conferences. Well, but you're on a pretty level playing ground, one would think. So Cliff Godwin, East Carolina, Houston, go.
The one thing that I'll say about mid-majors when you're talking about baseball, there's certain conferences that you're like, there's some talent there. Like East Carolina's in the American, and they've got to play Houston and UCF, and they got to play who else is in there? That's good. Tulane is generally a good program.
Southern Miss.
Southern Miss isn't in that conference.
Oh, they're in this.
They play them. Sorry. They play them before. They used to, but they've had a history of playing good baseball up there. And they are not a small, like College of Charleston, small ballpark, all that kind of stuff. They're a big school. East Carolina's as big as Clemson when it comes to numbers. You can see it in their baseball stadium. I've seen them hammer teams like UNC. So it's not like they're shying away or they're that plucky little team. They're here. They're like the Boise State of baseball. Is the best way I can say it. They're not fearful of anything. It's just they can't get that World Series hump or over that World Series hump. He's not my kind of like McDonald or Chef. He's not my first choice, but I think he would be above Chef and McDonald in the sense that he knows the area. He recruits well. He's not afraid to go against these programs. I think he would ultimately have success. It's just one of those things where it's like he's not my 1A or 1B. But he's still a good coach.
All right.
Yeah, I think it would be a good hire as well, just because of his track record. I mean, he is winning games against the big dogs and winning the conference every year and a top 16 seemingly every year. You always have to think twice when they're putting out the regional hosts and they're saying Greenville. You're like, wait, no, that's Greenville, North Carolina. One of the things I was thinking about with him is why would he come at this point? Because right now, apples to apples, if you're looking at it on paper, yes, Clemson's in the ACC, clearly the better conference. However, you're winning and you're hosting and you're probably getting paid handsomely. But that's when I stopped thinking and said it's probably the money. That's probably and the facilities. Yeah. It would be a reason to move on, and hopefully these coaches see it as we see this program, which is and Graham Neff sees it obviously as a top 15 program. There's something to get that splash higher. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no worries. There's something to be said for building your own program. And I know East Carolina was good before he got there, but 3 super regionals in 9 years, you keep that up. Eventually you're going to break through and get to Omaha, and they may end up building a statue, which was always my argument for. I never understood why Billy Gillespie left Texas A&M to go to Kentucky, because he wasn't going to do it. They weren't building any statue of him at Kentucky, but if he'd stayed at Texas A&M, they probably would have had one by now. Okay, it's time to roll your own, dudes. That was my list, a list I put together, copied from the internet. But you have a chance. Both of you had somebody in mind I don't think we hit on that list. Houston Burnett.
The one that I will say that we do as fans need to anticipate could be on any list that I've seen on most, and I would be completely okay with interviewing, is Scott Jackson from Liberty. They are a mid-major, yes, but kind of it's a different ball game with Liberty. The amount of money, they're kind of like mini Notre Dame, and you hear my dachshund down here shaking off. They're kind of like a mini Notre Dame, BYU. They got a ton of money and facilities. The facilities at Liberty are insane. It's just they don't probably pay as much. But once again, you look at how they play against ACC teams like Virginia and North Carolina. I've seen them hammer UNC and hammer Virginia, and you know that they're going to have a good pitching staff because Scott Jackson was an excellent pitching coach at UNC. He has prior ties to the ACC. He knows the area. You know, a little gun shy because of what happened with Monty Lee, knew the area, South Carolina, all that. But this could be something that works with Scott Jackson. Just do not, and Clemson fans, get this out of your thinking. All right, I've seen some people arguing over this. I'm going to say this for everyone. Do not suggest Landon Powell. Miss me with that garbage.
That's right? The name, Marty.
And I mean, he's a great coach. This is nothing against North Greenville. They are an excellent baseball program. He's an excellent coach. He's going to do a lot of great things, but he needs to go to College of Charleston or Liberty or go on a coaching staff at a major school and become a pitching or hitting coach or something like that. I will riot if that's something that happens, if Landon Powell is on the list of people they actually interviewed. That's insanity. That should not happen.
We just heard a 20-minute soliloquy on why Clemson should consider Landon Powell on the Twitter Spaces.
I
know you know. And again, you know, nothing against him personally, but it matters, as I wrote for Rubbing the Rock today, where they come from, especially in the South, right? But it matters here in Texas too. Texas is not hiring the last, you know, the all-star from Texas A&M to be their baseball coach. I mean, yes, Darrell Royal went to Oklahoma, but that was in 1822 before the internet, right? So I don't see it. And if you are a top 15 team, why do you have to hire a Division II coach? Why can't you hire a Link Jarrett or, you know, one of the Eric Backich from Michigan or whoever, chef from Virginia Tech even, over a Division II coach? Nothing against Division II coaches. But as Houston said, my thought is he needs to earn his stripes, so to speak. Casey?
Yeah, so my coach that nobody's talking about, nobody will talk about, but a coach that I would love to have coach my team is Jim Penders from UConn. I just think that he's been there for 19 years. They're going to build a statue there at that school for him, for the amount of major leaguers that he's put out there and the amount of arms that he can get. He has no ties to the Southeast, no ties really to the South. So it won't happen. But that's a pipe dream that I'm trying to manifest into reality, at least in the conversation.
You know, whoever does take the job, though, the first person I would call is their hitting coach who has ties to Clemson. I believe he was one of the coaches or at least like a GA under Jack Leggett, I think, from UConn.
He was a player.
Yeah, he was a player. It starts with a name or it starts with an H. I can't remember.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
No, it's not Mike Hampton. Mike Hampton was a coach. He's at Louisville, but he was not a pitcher. He was a hitter for Clemson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other, like along that same lines, talking about Landon Powell and the lack thereof, there's a Clemson guy that would take this job tomorrow if offered, and he's at Newberry. However, same idea exists there because, and it happened just recently in women's basketball. The Lander basketball coach, Kevin Pedersen, just took a job at Coastal Carolina. And in my opinion, and my opinion only, he was a manager with me at Clemson. I've lost touch with him completely. But in my opinion, he's going to take a small level D1 job so that when and if that Clemson job comes up and he's successful there, he can get that job. If my guy, Russell Triplett, also a contemporary, well, he's a little younger than me, of mine, who's at Newberry, were to ever, I don't think this is going to happen, want to move up, he would have to take kind of a smaller level. CFC is probably a big jump for him, but something like that, like a Landon Powell would probably need to do for me personally to accept the hire. I would almost go with Triplett more than Landon Powell, but that's not X's and O's at all. That's just me personally.
Wow. I Landon Powell, it's a bias, right? I'm honest. It's a bias, but it's a double bias because, like I said before, if you're a top 15 program, you're not looking at North Greenville for your next coach. And I don't care if John Wooden's there or whoever, or Dabo. That's the once, and that's what people are going to say, right? Well, look at Dabo. Dabo doesn't have any experience, and I'm like, that's a once in a lifetime or couple of lifetime things, right? Name the next Dabo, the other Dabo. There isn't one. There isn't one.
But at least Dabo was in a power program. It's not like Dabo was the head coach at North Greenville.
Yeah.
We hired him from North Greenville. He was on staff. He had prior relationships. He earned his keep by getting there. I would much rather it be somebody on staff. I hope it's not somebody on staff, but, if it was someone on staff, God forbid, I would rather have that than a D2 coach. You got to earn it first. You just got to earn it.
I think they just need to make a break from that staff, and I think you kind of heard that from Graham Neff yesterday when they were talking about, does anybody on the staff have a chance at the job? It's just kind of, you need a break, right? You need a break. You don't need Jack Leggett coming to practices or Monty Lee or whoever. Move on, go to the next guy. Any final thoughts, guys, or can we move on to the weekend of recruiting for football and hit Houston's specialty? Baseball sounded like his specialty for me, but big recruiting weekend coming up, Houston. We don't expect you to run down all 629 guys that are coming on campus, but this is something Casey and I talked with JP about, several times. It seems like a week, is that everybody's jumping off the cliff because of 4 recruits in June 1st. I am not jumping off the cliff. I'm kind of looking over the cliff thinking it looks mighty enticing down there. Be worried. Don't be worried. What do we expect from this weekend?
To be honest with you, it felt like today, getting on Twitter, it felt like there was some mojo back, some juice. Just it was good to see camp going on, players coming from around the country, players still interested in coming to Clemson. And I think that's going to continue through the weekend. I just say this. I'm going to beat this drum until the end of next season. Just keep even kill, relax. It's okay. Even if nobody commits this weekend, that there are players that have visits that might want to take their other visits. Clemson might have already sealed the deal with them, but they're going to follow through, and that's okay. But I think there's going to be a good portion of guys that are yielded from this class. These are people that Clemson already have relationships with, some guys that are probably on the brink of committing. There are other guys that aren't at this weekend that might show up in July for the all-in cookout that I think are going to be some big names. Everything's positive this weekend. I feel like, getting people in there that you're interested in, even for next year in the 24 class, it's going to pay dividends in the long run. So just start winning those battles right now. I think they're going to be able to do that starting, tomorrow.
It may not apply on the first weekend in June, but Patrick Cromwell in our Twitter Spaces tonight was talking about the allure of Clemson and how easy it is to recruit to Clemson, including the ladies on campus. That's why I was thinking, it's summertime. It may be a few less ladies around, but Clemson is Clemson, as we all know, right? It's not always as special to everybody as it is to the three of us. Beef, your thoughts on the weekend? And by the way, before you get to Beef, Houston sounded exactly like JP said. May not commit this weekend, but they're laying the foundation. These guys want to take other visits. So, but he said a fair amount of them will probably commit before their senior season starts. Plays right into your hands later in what you said later in the summer, perhaps after they've had a few other visits. Clemson could be seeing the dividends. Beef.
Yeah, that July all-in cookout seems to be the one where they'll get commits afterwards. This June one, I think, is more to lay the groundwork. Get the guys, keep the guys on campus, get the guys that were on campus from camp. It got exhausting today on Twitter looking at all the guys that have offers. I couldn't keep up, so I literally need to take some time later to see who these guys are, where they're coming from, what positions they play. But it just felt like, and I could be completely wrong, that there were a lot of offers doled out today after the first day of camp, which kind of springs life to the recruiting world again.
Sounds really, really good. Houston, I saw a guy on the internet when I posted the story from Rubbing the Rock about Chris Vizina still impressing. I thought I'd share this reply with you. He said, "Why are we recruiting all these quarterbacks?" So my last question to you tonight is,
oh my gosh,
I'm just laughing at his reaction.
Oh my gosh,
why are we recruiting all these quarterbacks? He said, I mean, that's at least 2.
I mean, it just. I want to quote John Chansey on this because John Chansey, go read him at rubbingtherock.com. I know a couple weeks ago he was like, if you want to learn more about recruiting, go read up on these premium recruiting services, pay for a subscription. I'm the opposite. I'm like, don't do that because there's message boards and you're going to think that the world, it's already bad enough with the current 24/7 news cycle in the world. Yeah. You don't need to go to whatever your choice of recruiting sites is, because it's like walking into a den of thieves in Moss Isley. It is the worst. You will go on, I won't quote anyone, but let's say it rhymes with Schmeiger Schmillustrated or Schmoo47. All right. And you're going to go on there and you're like, oh my gosh, what are these people? What trailer park in Pendleton did they come from? Oh my gosh.
I cannot do it. I've tried several times. Like every 3 years, like it's free 6 months, and I just can't do it. My friend Brandon Rink, works over at TigerNet now, and I thought, well, let me pop on over there one day, and somebody said, "Hey, my daughter's graduating from Clemson today. I'm so proud." And he got annihilated with send pics. I'm like, oh my God. It was crazy.
Like, I'm honestly to the point now, once again, I'm kind of saving up ammo for if Clemson has success in the season of like an expose of why should Clemson or why should any fan base let message boards be a thing? Like it's just not. It's not good. It's not good for you. Yeah.
I ran one for a while and I just shut it down. It was horrible.
There's a reason my friend, and he is my friend, Message Board Geniuses, is having so much fun on his Twitter account at Board Geniuses.
Okay, Casey, I asked Houston. I got to ask you, why are we recruiting all these quarterbacks?
I agree with the poster. We don't need them.
We should put a run it. We should run Wildcat. We need to go back to the Wildcat. You know who we need to get? We need to get Dylan Thompson up in here. Dylan Thompson can throw it.
I was talking to Danny Ford over there at Max the other day, and he said, I watched Southern Miss this year. They played a whole game against Louisiana Tech without a quarterback, and that it worked out well for Southern Miss. They won 3 games this year.
Guys, I'm so old. I remember they talked about how wild the offense was when I was at Clemson. I look back and Mike Epley threw like 14 passes a game, which is like a good quarter for some teams, right?
That would drive me. I don't know how you made it. Y'all made it through like the 80s and early 90s. Like the veer option offense, that's something I would much rather run like a Wisconsin eye than run the veer.
It was a different game back then, Houston. It was 3rd and 9, and we ran the trap.
Yeah, I'm not that old. We were high for him.
I'm just like, let's throw it around. I'm an air raid. I mean, maybe not an air. I'm more of like a Joe Brady. Let's toss it around for 60 touchdowns a year kind of guy. But
we'll close this up. But one of the most interesting games I saw in person, and I alluded to it the other day. It was on Houston. It was on your article about the Boston College game, the 25-7 game. That day I was at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium watching undefeated Texas that ended up playing Alabama in the Colt McCoy hurt his shoulder game. They were playing Texas Tech and Mike Leach, and I was way up in the upper deck and watched Mike Leach's Texas Tech offense, and it was fascinating.
Way they do it. It's almost like they just do pick plays every play, and it's just find the guy that's coming through the gap. That's it.
Yeah.
It's really unique. I
they had like 3 plays. They had like 3 plays, and he'd find any 6'3", 172-pound quarterback from your mama's barn, Texas, and make him into a quarterback that threw for 5,000 yards. I mean, it was crazy. It was one of the most fascinating games. It was pretty boring. It was 24-10, but it was fascinating to watch that offense move around when you're up there and you got kind of the view from the top.
I got to be honest, Marty. My stepson going to Mississippi State next year. I'm very excited about seeing that offense in person.
Well, he's turned kind of freaky. He's gone from a football coach to a pirate to, he's a little different than he was. Well, maybe, just don't let your stepson get close to a shed is all I'm saying. Because he may put him in a shed like Craig James.
Get him a couple adult beverages and see what he says. I'd be paying for that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Houston Burnett, we're going to let you go to your vacation. Appreciate you. This was so much fun. The Elitist Club will meet again next week. We may let Houston in next time, may not. We're pretty elite, Casey. Thank you so much, Casey the Beef Cregan, episode 93. You want to thank the people, Case?
Sure. Thanks to everyone in the Southern Use Reserve College Football Discussion Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his help, John Chancey for being a good all-around guy, Houston Burnett for joining us from the Morgan Thomas Show and rubbingtherock.com, Uncle John McGee, as always. Sluggo Podcast, each and every one of you who listens, likes, shares, subscribes, whatever to this podcast, even the folks that think we're an elitist. On behalf of Houston Burnett and Marty Seldom Use Reserve Coleman, I'm Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next week, probably. Right here.
If we let you watch
Thanks,
our
Houston.
show. Thanks, Houston. Appreciate you, man. Have fun. Have a good vacation.
I think we're done here.